And I'm not, by the way, I'm not happy with the UK either. That island that you read about, the lease, okay, he made it, for whatever reason, he made a lease of the island. Somebody came and took it away from him. And it's taken 3-4 days for us to work out where we can land there. It would have been much more convenient landing there as opposed to flying many extra hours. So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt joins us, former US Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme, Brigadier General. The President of the United States has said we are not dealing with Winston Churchill here when it comes to our Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. How fair is the criticism, do you think, of Britain's response to this?
Well, I think he would have appreciated the use of Diego Garcia earlier. I think he would have appreciated a more firm and robust backing of our operation. But look, we can understand Keir Starmer is having enough political problems of his own internally, and certainly he doesn't want to be considered a British poodle the way that Tony Blair was. So for his own political future, he doesn't want that comparison. So we understand, it's all politics.
Your reasoning is that Britain would have had enough legal weight behind it to say that an attack on Iran with the United States was justified in international law?
I don't get into the questions of international law. I'm not an international lawyer, but it's certainly the case that I think there are enough military and political reasons and policy issues to be doing it. Britain has always been by our side in the past, and I think people are surprised over here that that special relationship doesn't seem as special to the British.
How damaged do you think it is?
Not at all. We'll get over this.
But it's a snub? A slight?
We snubbed you in 1776. We're fine. Don't worry. This is not permanent damage.
The permanent damage is presumably being done in Iran. How long and to what extent did you understand the reasoning for America's bombing campaign now?
Quite simply because we'd rather do the bombing campaign before Iran has a nuclear weapon. It's much harder to do it after they've got a nuclear weapon.
What was the evidence to support Iran getting a nuclear weapon after Trump had, quotes, totally obliterated their program last time bombs were dropped in Iran?
Well, quite simply, the fact is that they acknowledged that the enriched uranium stockpile was not destroyed. And they've got a wonderful ballistic missile system that can reach Europe, can reach the region. All they would have to do, and it's likely that they have, a missile that is filled with that, with a warhead that's filled with some of that enriched uranium. And that can make a pretty dirty bomb landing in London or Paris or Riyadh.
What if I offer this theory to you, Brigadier General, that yes, of course, there are domestic political considerations for the Prime Minister to make, but that actually one of the assessments by the British might have been that Iran poses enough of a threat to Britain that if we were seen to be an aggressor, Iran might come after us, and Britain is not in a position to be able to defend herself without US help?
Well, first of all, you'll always have U.S. help, but I think that logic that you're using is the same logic that the Middle Eastern countries have been using, saying, listen, if you guys want to do that, that's fine. We're going to focus on our internal constituency. We don't want to be attacked by Iran. And yet they have been. And now they're coming to rally by our side. And there's a very good chance that they may want to use some of their military capabilities after their countries have been struck.
But that Britain would be able to defend itself from any Iranian threat that was coming our way?
I can't answer that question. I don't know your capabilities. I know enemy capabilities will help, but not Britain's.
Yeah. Is there a world in which Donald Trump, who is not particularly known for being all that trustworthy, doesn't come to help Britain if we were to have been involved?
Can you think of an example where we haven't lived up to the trust that you would have expected?
Well, I noticed that Keir Starmer gave Donald Trump a bit of a ticking off for the president describing our veterans as not having taken an active role in Afghanistan, not particularly serving on the front line.
Well, he was wrong.
Well, quite.
Quite.
So he's been wrong once before about Britain's capabilities. He's a bit slight against Britain, potentially.
He was wrong about Britain's activities, not the capabilities. you're still a very, very welcome and important part of the NATO coalition. Look, I've served side by side with your officers for years. I know what they've done. I know what they do. And the president was just wrong.
And do you think the Prime Minister was wrong not to offer that support initially?
That's a domestic political consideration that, and as China would say, I don't get involved in the internal affairs of other countries. Sure would have liked to have seen it, but we understand the pressure that he's under right now. And I suspect that he's more worried about his political future than long off issues like the Middle East.
How much longer does this offensive carry on for, do you think?
Without being glib, I think you need to ask the Iranians. And the reason I say that is because what we have done is we have taken those aims that we had attempted to achieve at the negotiating table, end their nuclear program, reduce their ballistic missile capability, disconnect the proxy network from Iran and the funding of that proxy proxy operations around the region. That's what we've been negotiating year after year after year. The Iranians, quite simply, have been saying, we won't talk to you about proxies, we won't talk to you about missiles, and only we'll talk the most minute technical details about our nuclear program. And the fact remains is we didn't accept that discussion. We've decided not to leave it at the negotiating table. We're now going to put it on the battlefield. I say that because I believe that this war will be over when the Iranians finally decide that it's in their best interest to negotiate significantly on those major issues, if we are even willing to negotiate on them.
Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt is a former US Assistant Secretary of State for Political-Military Affairs.